Welcome to the Joy of Coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 324 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. We're going to be doing some interesting hacking today on Mozilla eThings. Some of it may be on Firefox. Some of it on maybe not Firefox. Some of it might be on a website, actually, called support.mozilla.org, that if you've ever tried to get information about how to use some part of Firefox, or maybe you wanted to examine other people's conversations about how to change parts of Firefox, or maybe you've helped other people, maybe you've even contributed to support.mozilla.org. That's kind of like the hub for learning how to use the browser and getting your questions answered for just end users. And we might be working on some of that today. I'll dive into details shortly, but first, welcome. Let me share my screen. Yes, it's May 10th, 2023, episode 324. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I think I know what I want to do today. I think I have a vague sense of how things will go down, but I could be wrong. I've been wrong before, and things could go completely sideways. I might, just before the stream started, Wacky Morning DJ, which is the tool that I use to play sounds like the opening and closing music, it's broken because I updated Node, and so that was a surprise. That's why I'm starting a little bit late, and so I might have to work around that sort of problem, and that's okay. That's kind of how all this thing works. Is you're capturing software development, well, how as I say it, in the raw, all warts and all the problems I hit, and you get to join me as I go through them. So who knows how things will go down, but we'll go through it together. That's the fun part. And the second thing I'll say is that the agenda that we're looking at is something that you have access to if you want to click on links and follow stuff around. If you go to the video description on diode.zone or YouTube, there's a link down there. It's over there on Air Mozilla. There's a link in the details section. And if you're watching this on Twitch, it's down in the channel details, the link to the agenda. And as I update the agenda, the agenda will synchronize in the background, and you can reload. And hopefully it will look okay. Let's actually just double check and see how it looks. Yeah, it looks okay. All right, so what do I want to do today? Well, first of all, I wanted to let you know that there wasn't... I didn't live hack last week. I didn't stream last week because I was on a podcast. So the Thunderbird team, the people who are working on the Thunderbird email client, they have a podcast called the Thundercast, and they were kind enough to offer me a guest sort of slot to talk to me during episode 2, their second episode. And if you're interested in listening to me yammer on with Jason and Ryan, two people who work on Thunderbird as well, there's a link in the agenda, and you can listen to it. I thought it was a pretty decent conversation. We covered a lot of ground. We talked about, naturally, we talked about Thunderbird, because I used to work on Thunderbird before I started working on Firefox. I worked on Thunderbird. We talked a bit about Thunderbird, the recent changes there, but we also talked about Firefox, which might interest you, and what, the device migration stuff that we're working on today, and some of the Migration Wizard stuff we've worked on in the past. I referenced it. And I also talked a little bit about, producty things, but we also dove in, and measurement and experimentation, but we also dove into just retro computing stuff and how the internet used to be and how the internet is now and all the pipes and tubes. And if you're interested in all, you can check it out. It's an hour and 18. If you listen to it at twice speed, it's 40 minutes roughly. And it's a good conversation. So there you go. Check out the Thundercast and subscribe to that thing. It's a good crew. I'm going to be listening to the next episode as well. They're going to have some interesting guests. I think they're getting some guests from the Document Foundation and the Matrix community and all sorts of interesting stuff. So go check that out. Okay, so what are we working on today? Well, let's talk about Sumo for a quick second here. I mentioned this during the introduction. This is Sumo. If you've never been, this is Sumo. You go to support.mozilla.org. It's a web page. It's a web application. You can visit it right now. And it has support documentation, like a knowledge base for a bunch of Mozilla products, from Firefox all the way to Thunderbird and the private network add-on and Relay and Monitor and Hubs and VPN and all these sorts of things. It's got support articles and forums, support forums for all of these things. And so, for example, if you go to Firefox, you can learn, okay, well, here's some frequent topics that people visit. Here's some featured articles. And you can, like, learn about, Firefox for families and how to use parental controls or something. And it gives you guidance on how to do that. And there's also, I think, forums, support forums in here. Like, let's see here, get help, ask a question. So you can actually ask a question in here about, like, hey, how do I do X or Y? How do I get, it will try and find you an answer to your question, basically. And if you can't figure out your answer, then you can ask a question directly here, and someone might answer it. So if you're like, how do I deal with, I don't know, how can I make it so that my what's a good question that one might ask? How do I migrate data from another browser into Firefox? That's a question someone might ask. And if they can't find the information, you can ask for it here. And you might be interested in, like, if you're watching this stream, chances are you know your way around Firefox. In which case, you might be interested in helping people out. And you can do that. There's a whole community of awesome people who help new contributors, but also people who are just using Firefox and want to know how to use it better. And you can help out in the support forums, and that's great. You can learn, you can teach, and you can learn, and it's a pretty great platform. And I will say as well that it's unsurprisingly open source. The Sumo web application is open source. It's actually called Kitsune or Kitsune. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it is a Django application, and it is an open source Django application. You can check it out. You can pull it down. There's a whole document on how you can run it locally. How you can get started, and you can fix bugs in the Sumo platform. And one of the things that we're working on, it's like, why am I talking about Sumo right now? Well, one of the things that we're working on, and I mentioned this during the podcast actually, is trying to make it easier for people to realize that they can use a Firefox account and sync to move from an old computer to a new computer, or to move, like, to transfer the data from an old device to a new device. Now, if you're watching this, chances are you know this. So what I'm saying is probably not a surprise. But if you didn't know this, if you, let me just pick an example out of the air. Let's say you're getting one of your parents a computer for a gift for, a birthday. It's a big gift. Wow, new computer. Holy smokes. Because they've got this old, like, Windows 7 laptop from 2014 lying around, and it's like, it's time. It's time. Your computer's too slow. We got you a new laptop. We bought it at Best Buy. Something like that. How do you get their data, their precious data, their bookmarks, all the stuff that they've accumulated over the years on that trusty Windows 7 computer? How do you get it onto the new computer? And, you've got a couple of options. If you're feeling adventurous, you could, like, open up the profile folder and copy all the profile contents into a jump drive, and then, like, create a new profile on the new computer and, like, dump in the profile contents into that profile. Like, you could do that, but that's a pretty heavyweight way of doing a profile transfer. It involves doing a bunch of, like, using a key, like a jump drive or an external hard drive, or, sending stuff over the network. That I wouldn't do. I wouldn't send your profile over the network because it's got all your bookmarks and history and passwords and stuff in it. But, there's a challenge here, especially because this could be multiple gigabytes of data, and most of which you're probably not interested in transferring in the first place. Like, there are certain things that a profile, especially a profile that's old, will accumulate over time that you probably don't want to take with you to a new computer. Old directories from old Zool style add-ons that dumped a bunch of stuff in there, like that, you can leave that behind. And so the solution we're trying to sort of promote is to have users create a Firefox account if they don't have one. If they do have one, to make sure they're signed into it and make sure they're syncing, and then sign into that account on the new computer. That's what we're trying to do. Like, that is the flow. And the reason we're trying to promote that, trying to encourage that, is because it's secure. This is a secure transfer of data, end-to-end encrypted, where Mozilla doesn't get to see the contents because it's using sync and client-side encryption. We don't get to see the bookmarks or history or passwords or add-on information or anything like that. It's just transferred seamlessly. It is backwards and forwards compatible. Even if that computer that's from 2014, or in our theoretical example, is running like Firefox ESR, it is still possible for it to like sign into an account, sync, and then sync to a newer version of Firefox. Like, that'll still work. It's nicely forwards compatible and backwards compatible, though I don't imagine one would download an older version of Firefox on the new computer. And the last step is, or the last reason why we're trying to promote this, is because you don't need both computers to be accessible in order for this to work. Like, once your old computer is signed into a Firefox account and syncing, once it's done syncing, you can shut off that computer and put it away, because when you sign into your account and sync on the new computer, it's pulling the encrypted blobs down from Mozilla's servers and setting stuff up. So that's useful in the event that, for example, your old computer, maybe you got a new computer, or your family member got a new computer because the old one broke. Maybe it stopped working. Maybe, the hard drive finally failed on it, like that sort of thing. So we're really trying to encourage people, especially on older hardware. Hey, create an account and start syncing now. In the event that like your hardware starts breaking down, you want to make sure that your data is backed up, your precious browsing history and all that stuff is backed up, so that if that happens and your computer breaks and maybe your hard drive fails, you get a new hard drive, keep the old computer, but you get a new hard drive, you have to reinstall everything. You download Firefox, you sign into your account, and then all your stuff's back. Like, that's what we want. The old computer might die, or it's no longer usable, or maybe it got lost or stolen. Like, there's so many different ways that things could go wrong here. And so a Firefox account that is syncing allows you the sort of the peace of mind to know that, well, okay, at least all of that stuff is being held securely on the sync servers, so that on a new computer, I can pull that stuff down. And this is also really useful if you also have multiple computers. Maybe you're keeping the old computer around, but you're also getting a new computer. Sync definitely supports that. You can have both computers syncing at the same time, and like that's a nice way of being able to pass tabs back and forth. So that's also helpful. So anyway, that is the MO. That is the whole purpose of what we're trying to do here. And so what we're hoping to do, we've added in Nightly, it's in beta right now actually too. We've added a new help menu called switching to a new device. It doesn't send you to a working Sumo page yet. We're still building it out. But what we're hoping to do is to walk the user through creating an account, signing into it, starting syncing, and then instructions on how to download Firefox onto the new computer. And that doesn't sound too difficult, except that a Sumo document where it just lists steps is fine, but we can do better. One of the things that we're hoping to do is make use of something called UI Tour, which is a library that Mozilla websites, Mozilla.org websites can use to sort of have privileged communications with the browser. So for example, sumo.mozilla.org, support.mozilla.org can ask the browser, am I signed into an account right now? It can ask, is the user syncing? And it will get an answer. And only support.mozilla.org and mozilla.org websites can do that. Like, we definitely don't allow other websites to do that. But that's something that UI Tour allows mozilla.org websites to do. And there's a bunch of security layers in place to make sure that, okay, only mozilla.org websites can do this. And we want to make use of that mechanism to walk the user through what we're calling the what I'm calling the switching devices wizard, which will step the user through. Okay, step 1, are you not signed in? Okay, great, let's sign you in, or create an account. Step 2 is, are you syncing? No? Okay, we'll start syncing. That's important. Step 3, and then like, are you syncing the right things? Because you can choose. There's a bunch of different stuff you can choose to sync. Are you syncing the things that you care about? And then step 3 is, okay, now that you've signed in and syncing, go download this build of Firefox on your new computer. Like, here's a short link. And what we're doing, kind of specially with that short link, is we're sending the user a build that is, when the user downloads it and installs it on the new computer, it should, at least on Windows, after it installs, the onboarding screen will say, like, welcome back. We know that you were transferring to a new computer. Welcome back. Sign into your new account here, the one that you created. As opposed to sort of the more generic onboarding. And we'll know that because of the special link we're going to give people to download from the Sumo page. So that is the idea. And what have we got so far? Well, I'm working on this with another person. I'm working on this with a colleague, Hannah Jones, who is working on the markup and the logic of the wizard, like the UI components. And what I'm working on is the state machine that walks the user through the different steps. And I've got this patch. Well, I mean, a bunch of this stuff is actually already in Tree. If you look at Kitsune, this stuff merged just this morning. You can see the switching devices wizard manager thing under Kitsune, Sumo, static Sumo, JS, and then there's a thing called the switching devices wizard manager, and this is what I've been working on so far. This is like my domain. You can check that out. And this is also my first time working on Sumo, so I'm learning a lot. I've worked with Django applications before. There's a code review tool that I contribute to periodically called Review Board that's written in Django. So I have some familiarity with Django. But, ostensibly for Mozilla, I work on like the desktop client. I work on Firefox as opposed to like websites for Mozilla. So this is all while the language and some of the mechanisms are familiar to me, I'm also learning a lot about web development and like the whole ecosystem. Like, for example, I'm using Docker to like host the world effectively. Like, I've got all of the bits and pieces that you need in order to like host Docker or host Sumo and run it locally. And I also was running the Firefox accounts ecosystem locally, which was really interesting. Yeah, so that's how all this stuff's working. I have a patch that I want to clean up and put up for review. That's what I'm hoping to do first. This is what I was working on this morning, and I'm hoping you can stick with me while I finish the job with that. And what I need to do is clean up the patch. If we take a look at the patch as it is, let me find a terminal. Let me find an unused terminal. This one. Yeah, I need a better commit message, but effectively what I'm doing is, like, one of the first things that the wizard needs to do is detect whether or not the user is using desktop Firefox, because that's the target for this Sumo page, is for desktop users on their old computer switching to their new computer. And if they're on like a mobile device or they're using like Safari or Chrome or something, then the wizard is not going to be able to help them because it can't use UITour. UITour isn't available. It doesn't work on non-Mozilla browsers, probably unsurprisingly. And so we need to like disqualify. There's a method that we're going to call on the wizard that's like, this is a disqualified user agent. So we'll put the wizard into the state where it just says like, okay, well, you need to be on Firefox desktop on the old device in order for us to go through this wizard. So I'm adding that in right now. And the whole design of the here, let me make this window a little bit bigger and maybe talk a little bit through how this whole thing works. It's a state machine effectively, and I don't want you to freak out and be like, "Oh, state machines! Oh no!" Like, isn't that like from theory of computing and finite state automata and like, what's his face? I studied this stuff in school. Who was the fellow I studied with? Finite state automata, Toronto. There's a fellow named Cook, Stephen Cook, who I had a course with at one point. He talks about like Turing machines and finite state automata. Don't get freaked out. We're not going into deep theory here. All it is it's we have a bunch of state variables that we're going to be getting information in from various sources like UI tour and user input events and, asking for the user agent and like doing all this stuff. And then we're going to update these internal state variables. And then we will compute which step of the wizard the user is supposed to be in. That's the name of the game. And that's what my patch is hoping to do, is we're going to have we have these 3 steps effectively. The first step is like, okay, sign into FXA. And then the next step is like, okay, configure sync, make sure you're syncing. And then the final step is, okay, well, let's set up your new device. And there's no exiting that condition. And the way I'm framing it is like, we're going to have these functions that will examine the current state and, determine whether or not we can skip the step. Like if the user hits the wizard and they're already signed in, we can skip this first step and go straight to configuring sync, and making sure that the user has everything that they need synced. And once they're done that, then we just follow to this last step. And there's no exiting that last step. That last step is, okay, now that you're done, you're syncing, go get Firefox on that new computer. So that is the name of the game. There's not much to look at right now because the actual UI isn't built out. That's still coming. But if you look, there's a custom element called a form wizard. That is what we're talking to as our front end. And we have this sort of contract, I guess is what I'll say. Let me find the documentation. Support. Is there? Let me see here. Hold on just one moment. What am I doing? I just want to show you this documentation. I just have to find it. Okay. Here's the documentation. Okay. So we have this design here where we're trying to have the flow of data, and we're trying to document all of the different things. This is like the contract between what the switching devices wizard manager is going to call on the form wizard. And there's like some state machine logic here that we've documented, and then there's the components of the form wizard itself. And this is kind of our template for what it is that we're building. And I'm going to now go over here. And what I want to do is clean up this patch that I've written and fill in some of these to-dos. Because some of the things I've done are like I've added new methods or I've added various arguments, and I need to just start documenting stuff. I also have written a bunch of tests, and I need to document a bunch of stuff in here. So that's what you're going to be following me with doing today. We're going to just start going through the to-dos and fleshing out these comments. So the first thing is the constructor. And what I'm going to do is document the form, the arguments, the parameters here. Form wizard, the form wizard element to send state change, sends to set steps, and the active step on to set steps, set which step the user should be viewing on, and then string fake UA. I think that we do lowercase there for, and this is optional, undefined. An optional fake user agent string to construct the for an optional fake user agent string to supply for testing. This is forwarded to if this is not supplied, the actual navigator user agent string is used. Param string, or this is an object actually. Fake troubleshooting. Undefined. An optional fake object to pass to the what's it called? The browser detect library to simulate reading from the UI tours troubleshooting data. Is that how it works? Troubleshooting data, browser detect. There's like troubleshooting detector. How does that work? Troubleshooting detector uses remote troubleshooting. Import sumo.js, remote sumo.js, remote.js, remote troubleshooting. Remote troubleshooting message to Chrome web channel. Interesting. Reading from is to simulate reading from simulate what is returned from a web channel on a Firefox browser for a request for troubleshooting data. And that's used to pre-populate the like if you're asking a question, it will make it easier for the user to like for Sumo to know like, okay, this is the exact version of Firefox that the user is on and stuff. Like there's additional detail that the user agent string doesn't supply. And instead of using all that machinery during our automated testing, we just supply a fake one. And initial does user agent does the work of scanning the user agent to determine if this is one that can actually use the wizard. If not, the form wizard is told to show the disqualified state. And then we're going to copy Yep, there we go. Then disqualify, we should document this. Actually, we don't need this at all because we were just calling directly on to disqualify. We need documentation here. Computes which step should be shown to the user in form wizard based on the current state. Once that step is calculated, the set step method is called on the form wizard, passing the name of the step and a payload of settings to configure that step. Okay. Any other to-dos in here? I have to, you know what I need to do is replace that to do with an issue number. So I'm gonna file an issue. It's interesting. One of the things about Kitsune is that all of the issue tracking happens under Mozilla Sumo, and but the project is under Mozilla Kitsune. So like if I file a ticket, I have to do it under here. I'm gonna file a ticket. Replace placeholder string disqualification strings in switching devices wizard manager with final copy, and I'm gonna put the right label on it and put in the right board and the right milestone. I've got some placeholder text in. I'll be putting some placeholder text inside of switching devices wizard manager to show clients that don't match our requirements for showing the wizard steps. Once the actual copy is settled, we should replace that placeholder text. Okay. So we'll link to that here. Mozilla Sumo 1270. Replace this placeholder text with final copy. All right. Now there was another to do in here regarding tests. I need to like document some of the stuff here in our tests. Assign on stub for form wizard set step. This is set up and reset in before each and after each, respectively. Do we do the same thing with fetch stub? And reset in before each and after each, respectively. Helper function to return a switching devices wizard manager that is constructed with testing UA strings that are result in the manager evaluating the user agent as qualified to use the wizard. And then to do here, I can to do down here. Fetch stubs. Yeah, okay, we can just replace these. Sign on stub for form wizard disqualify. This is set up and reset. I actually don't know if fetch stub is used. It is not. We can just remove that. Okay. Then to do document. This is similar to to return that is constructed with some testing that result in the manager valuing the user is not qualified to use the wizard. All right. What is sign on? Just to make it simple, sumo katsumi. Kitsune? Sumo katsuni? Not sure what you mean there. Mozilla/sumo. I'm not sure what you mean. What is Sign-On? Well, I can answer that. Sign-On is a this is a third-party library for doing stubbing. It's like a utility, testing utility with like stubbing and spies and mocks in JavaScript. It's really excellent. So basically, it allows you to like override certain methods on things, and then monitor what they're called with, or to see if they were ever called, or make sure that they were never called, and check to see what they were called with, and that helps to do unit testing, because it allows us to, instead of doing maybe doing dependency injection, we can just sort of poke into the existing set of dependencies around the thing that we're testing to put them into easier, a more controlled, steady state, or a controllable lab environment. I don't know if I'm explaining this correctly or clearly, but it allows us to like override certain things. So for example, you can set up a stub, and then you can say, okay, well, hey, the next time that disqualify method is called, make sure it calls this function, which is actually going to resolve this promise. And that's helpful for, if you need to wait for a function to be called, this is helpful, this pattern. Maybe there's an existing sign-on. The first comment was that you filed a bug on Sumo, not Katsumi. Yeah, that's intentional. We're supposed to only file tickets under Mozilla Sumo and not Katsuni, which is kind of strange. Funny to hear sign-in pronounced like it was an English word. Well, how is it supposed to be Sinon? Is it French? Is it French? Sinon? What is this, a pun? I don't understand. I've always just called it sign-in, like Simon. But if it's a pun, let me know. Anyway, this allows us to sort of do some avoiding of dependency injection and write tests that, for example, when they're called, they should all run, and and that's with constructing like a fake form wizard. So it's for unit testing. So I'm pretty happy with that. Are there any other to-dos in here? No, there are not. Let us take stock, where I'm going to add these changes. I'm using Git now, so I'm not the greatest at Git, but I have some capability. And let's take a look at the patch. So is it using UI Tour yet? I'm importing it, but am I using it? Maybe I can skip that part. Yeah, I'm not actually using that yet. So I'm going to skip that part. And I'm going to put this part back because I didn't need to take it out just yet. That's under device migration wizard.js. And then, you know what I need to do actually is document the steps construction here. An array of objects representing steps. Actually, I can use like a type def array of switching devices wizard steps that can be used to that are evaluated during each state change to determine which step we should put the user in with the form wizard. And then we're going to do a type def switching devices wizard steps. example, property, string, name. The name of the step to set via form wizard set step to pass to the name of the step to pass to form wizard set step if this switching devices wizard step is the one we're entering. Property, this is a function. There's exit conditions met at property. Function exit conditions met. A function that accepts the state object from switching devices wizard manager and determines if the switching devices wizard step can be skipped over. Returns true if the switching devices step can be skipped over because the conditions are met for completing it are met. Property, function, enter. A function that accepts the state object from returns another object that is passed to the form wizard set step method as the payload for configuring the step, the displayed step. Okay. I think that's all I want to do here. And then this is intentionally public so that the steps can be tested individually, unit tested individually. Okay. And maybe let's write a couple of those steps, or those unit tests. Describe. And we're just gonna take all this out. Switching devices manager. Steps. Have expected exit conditions and enter behaviors. Okay. We're going to construct one of these things. Maybe this should be a more general helper method. should show the should not let the user exit the FXA sign-in step. The sign into FXA step. Unless signed in. Signed in. Yeah. Here we go. See if, sinon, else. Interesting. So it's French wordplay. Okay. Let step equal, well, first of all, let manager equal construct valid manager. Oh, you know what? I should actually, no. I know what I want to do, because there's some helpers and like some gunk that I want to reuse from that first bank of tests. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to move that, and I'm not going to have this down here. Instead, I'm going to add it to this list. And then let step equals manager at steps find s.name equals sign into FXA. Expect step dot exit conditions. All right, let expect step dot exit conditions FXA signed in false to be false, true to be true. Let's see if it likes that. Let's run those tests. Sinon. Exit conditions is not a function. Conditions met, sorry. Exit conditions met. Yeah, okay. In a way, this is almost just like testing that the code is the way that the code is, which this just kind of makes it so that it's harder for me to make like logic errors accidentally. But I realize that this is almost just testing that like this code is this code. Should not let the user exit the configure set sync step unless sync enabled and configured. Configure sync. And was that sync enabled and confirmed sync choices? Confirmed sync choices, sync enabled, false. FXA signed in, true. Well, it doesn't even use that. Sync enabled false, we expect that to be false. We expect sync enabled but confirmed choices to be false, to be false. We expect if somehow the user has confirmed the choices despite having not had sync enabled, that should also be false. And then we expect only when they are both true should that be true. Not sure how the user might have confirmed sync choices when yeah, if sync is not enabled, if the user, I suppose this could occur if the user confirms their choices and at the same instant sync gets disabled. Seems unlikely, but testing it anyway. Okay. Good. And then the last one is it should, if once those are all satisfied, then no matter what you pass to set up new device, that should return false. So I'm just going to make sure that it just returns false. It should return false. Exit the what was it called? Set up new device step. Exit conditions met. True, sync enabled, confirmed sync choices, all to be false. All that should be false. Okay. Now, what about entering? Entering should echo back these. Yeah, it should echo back. Should have the sign into FXA step echo back the right parameter, right payload if entering. Not echo back, emit the right payload if entering. Maybe what I could do is like describe the sign into FXA step. Then we'll put these outer scope. Should not let the user exit step unless I should have the step emit the right payload if entering. Step enter. We're going to pass it this payload. Const state test state equals const expected payload equals that. And we're going to say enter test state to deep equal expected payload. And the test state will be experiment variation flow, fake FXA flow ID, fake FXA flow begin time, context, sync, FXA root, fake FXA root, FXA signed in, true, sumo email test at example.com, sync enabled, true. Oh, no, it's FXA signed in, false. Sumo email, confirm sync choice is false. Expected payload should be we enter the root email. Okay. Whether or not, okay, so we're gonna say that we expect that. It's not happy with that for some reason. Cannot read properties of null. 126. To create on line 215. Test 104. And then line 126. Couldn't read has attribute because form wizard is null. Whenever I do a new describe, does that override the old before each's? Huh. That might be the case. In which case, all right. Mocha. Describe. Before each. Nested. Describe. Execution order. Before is called before the top level before Mocha before hooks. Top level before, then nesting, then nested before, top level before each, nested before each. So it's what's going wrong here? should be happy with that. Like before each should be running. Setting up fake wizard. If I get rid of all of this, whoop. What happens? Oh, wait. Do I have... Okay, sorry. These all belong together. Does that run? It's happy with that. And as soon as I put this in here, let's disable some of these. And just do the construction. Yeah, it doesn't like this. Expect true to be true. How about that? That is fine. It's as soon as I use construct valid manager in here. What the heck? All right. Well, I don't want to really spend too much time debugging that. So I'm just going to go up a level. It should not user advance past the assign into FXA step unless signed in. Should have the FXA step with the right payload if entering. All right, what does it think of that? Now it's very upset. Oh, right. So we're gonna get rid of those. Sorry. There. So it needs to do this, which is annoying, but such is life. The right payload if entering. Construct valid manager is not defined. Is the reason it wasn't working? Hang on. Let's go back for a sec. Is this at the wrong scope? Oh, that's defined. And then inside. All right. Enough of this. Enough of this time wastery. Should not let the user pass the signed in. And it should pass. Describe this here. Okay. Okay, so we actually found a failure here. Expected, actual, so the ordering, sumo email. Oh, right. So I think there is a transform that occurs to that stuff. That is intentional. Email, yeah. So it should be not sumo email, it should be email. Good. Okay, so that's nice. And then pass then we're gonna put this stuff in there. That should still all pass. Good. And then the payload should have the configure sync. And then the state that we're passing in, just going to say sync enabled, confirmed sync choices. All right. True. False. Expected. expected payload to be whether or not sync is enabled. Sync enabled, false. Good. And then finally, should not let the user step exit conditions meant to be false. Should not supply a payload. Should not supply a payload to the setup new device step when entering. So true. True. Guess we can get rid of that. Expected payload to be the empty object. Good stuff. All right, so we've tested our individual steps. Make sure that they're doing what we want. I was spending most of the time getting the test set up. But I think that gets us in a fine position to create a commit here, pull request. So we're going to git commit a amend. And I'm going to call, what was the sumo issue I'd filed? Create initial step computation mechanism. So create initial step computation mechanism and UA qualification mechanism for the switching devices migration. Switching devices wizard manager. And this is number 1268. This adds UA string checking. Make sure that the wizard is only able to be used if the client is a Firefox desktop browser. Adds a series of step definitions within switching devices wizard manager with exit with specific exit conditions and a method for turning the internal state of the switching devices wizard manager into a payload that can be used to configure the selected step, and adds a bunch of tests. So this is our patch. Let's put it up. Let's put it up for review. So the way we do that is we're gonna push this to here. Let me inflate the font here. Whoop! Where'd that? Oh, why does that always move to another display? Git push me. Set steps. I'm pushing it to my fork. Scooba doo 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 doo. So I've got a fork here, and I'm gonna create a pull request from my fork. I'm going to request review from Hannah and Ryan. Create pull request. Oh, you know what? Also, I should have done is made sure I'd run the linting lint webpack. And is there any prettying that I need to do here? No. Okay. And what about in here? Oh, there's a little bit of prettying that just happened. Git diff. Status git add that. Git push me. Set steps. We're gonna force push, and that'll update the. I squash. Yeah, that'll update the pull request. And there we go. There's my pull request. So hopefully what'll happen now is, you know, the form wizard's going to fulfill the part of the contract. Hannah's working on the form wizard, and they're going to expose that set steps method and the disqualify method, and then we can actually start seeing this thing behave a little bit. And then we need to just do more work for like updating the internal state, like checking. We need to add the capability of checking to see if the user is signed in. So one of the things we do immediately after initializing is we're going to check to see if the user is signed in. Yeah, we'll add that in here. All right. So I think I'm going to call it there. Thank you so much for watching episode... What is this? Episode 324? Wow. Yeah, this is episode 324 of The Joy of Coding. Thanks for watching. Oh, actually, let's slip something extra in before we close out, because I didn't want to forget. One of our QA people noticed there's a problem in... the migration wizard. There's like an inconsistent string, and so I want to fix that real quick, and let's see if we can sort of sneak that in at the very end of the stream. I'll show you the bug. This only happens for Mac OS, but basically we've got this permission dialog where we show the user this information in the migration wizard if they're on Safari or they're on Mac OS, they're trying to migrate from Safari, and we need to get permission to read the directory, because Mac OS has like pretty strict policies on when applications can read from the Safari library directory. And there's a inconsistency here where this button used to say continue and now it says select file, but this instruction was never updated. So we have to update this to say select file. So we're going to do that right now. Let's just get that going real quick. And the file that we're going to update is in migrationwizard.ftl. Whoops, I spelled that wrong. Migrationwizard.ftl. And the message is called select. We're just going to look for the word continue. Yeah. This instructions, it shouldn't be continue. It should be instructions select file. Oh, not Git. I gotta switch my brain over to Mercurial now. And we're gonna say this is instructions, select file, select. Oh, that's gonna be awkward. It's gonna say select file. I need to talk to our copy people. Okay. Okay. I'm not gonna be able to fix this here, unfortunately. So I'm gonna have to do it after I have to go talk to some people. But basically, we need to replace this string with like verb select file. But select file is very awkward. So I'm gonna have to work with them to get whatever the right string is supposed to be. All right. Thanks so much for watching episode 324 of The Joy of Coding. Let me know what you thought. There's a forum here in the agenda to rate this episode. And, let me know what you think. I read everything that comes in. It's very helpful. It helps me craft the episodes for you. Let me know what you want to see. Do you like it whenever I'm working on Sumo? Would you rather I work on something else? Let me know. Have any questions? You can ask them there as well. And if you want to just hear me natter, you can listen to the podcast episode where I talk to Jason and Ryan from the Thunderbird team on the Thundercast. Here's a quick preview. I'm going to give you a quick taste. It's the equivalent, in my mind anyways, of like if you've got a whole bunch of people living in a house or like an apartment building, and it's on the edge of an eroding cliff. And the work that's underway is moving that entire apartment complex to a better place, replacing the foundation, replacing the plumbing because it's all like lead pipes, replacing all the electrical because it's knob and tube, and doing it while people are still living in the building and they don't even really know it's happening. What a pull quote. Anyway, if that doesn't wet your whistle, I don't know what will. Go check it out. All right. Thanks again for watching. Hopefully I'll see you next week for episode 325. Take care, everybody. Hang on. Bye-bye. I just got to get the end music working again. Hold on. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.